Jai Hind बच्चों. So today we will continue with this chapter 6 tissues of class 9th. So in previous videos we covered plant tissues and some part of animal tissues. And like we know that animal tissues on the basis of function, it is divided into 4 types: epithelial tissue, connective tissues, muscular tissue and nervous tissue. So out of that, epithelial tissues and connective tissues we have covered in last video. And in this video we'll cover muscular tissues and nervous tissue. Right? So now discuss this muscular tissue. So muscular tissue, as we know that muscles, we are familiar with the term muscles. So how these muscles, what is the role of these muscles is in the movement. Yeah. So these tissue, they are responsible for movement in our body. And the cells of this muscular tissue, they are elongated, right? And we call them as a muscles fiber. So, and their function is movement. So how they move? They have special proteins. So we know that in many advertisement we have seen that if you eat more protein, then you will become more muscular. Even those who do wrestling and all, they advise to take more protein to increase their muscle mass. So these muscles, they have proteins, and when these proteins, they contract and relax, which cause movement of the muscles. So in this muscles also we have basically 3 types: voluntary muscles, involuntary muscles and cardiac muscles. Okay. So as name suggests, these voluntary muscles, these muscles, they move by our conscious will. When we want to move, they move, and when we don't want, they will not move. So that's why they are called the voluntary muscles. And they are mostly attached to bones, right? So that's why they are also called the skeletal muscles, right? So bones, they form our skeletal system, and these muscles, they are attached to these bones, right? So these are called the skeletal muscles. And if we see the structure, if we see one cell, right, so their cells are long and cylindrical. See this type of structure, single muscle cells, and they have this light and dark band. See this dark band, then light band, then dark band, then light band. So these are called striations. So these are light and dark band. These are actually because of different proteins. More you will study in your higher classes, right? But for you, this much for you, it's enough that these cells, they are long, cylindrical, and these have these striations, dark and light bands, and they have these nuclei. So these cells are long, elongated and multinucleate, right? And they are not branched, they are unbranched. Clear? So because of these striations, these muscles are also called the striated muscles. So it's same thing, we can call them voluntary muscles because they move according to will. They are attached to bones, so that we can call them as skeletal muscles. And they have striations, so we call them striated muscles. Clear? And there are muscles with those who don't move according to our will, right? We can't stop their movement, we can't start their movement. So these are involuntary muscles, right? So what type of movements they control? Like movement of food in alimentary canal, so that we can't stop and we can't start, right? So it's an involuntary movement. So these muscles, they control this type of movement, contraction and relaxation of blood vessels, right? So these blood vessels, they contract, they relax, so that our blood can flow. So this contraction and relaxation of blood vessel is controlled by involuntary muscles. And these muscles, they are found in the iris of eye. So that because of that pupil of our eyes, it moves, it shortens, and it long. So according to the different amount of light, when there is a dim light, so iris, it shortens our pupil. So they are found in the iris of eye, and that is also not are under control. Secondly, they are found in the ureter, in the our excretory system, where there is a urine is present, and in bronchi of our lungs. So all these movements, they are controlled by involuntary muscles. Clear? And if we see the structure, these structures, these cells are long with pointed ends. See, these are like this. These are spindle shaped and uninucleate. There's single nuclei in each cell. Clear? And they don't have striations, no light and dark band. So that's why we call them the smooth muscles also. And another name is unstriated muscles. So same muscles, we call them involuntary muscles because they don't function according to our will. They are called smooth muscles because they don't have striations, and unstriated muscles also. Right? Now, one more type of muscles we have, these are called the cardiac muscles. So these cardiac muscles, they are present in heart. So you know that our heart function whole life, right? It pumps blood to our body. Yeah. So it never stops. So these muscles, they contract and relax so that our heart can pump blood. Okay? If we see the structure of this type of muscles, right? So it is like this. In this case, cells, they are cylindrical, but they are branched. See? Clear? And uninucleate. Clear? They have septa, which divides this, right? And uninucleate and branch. So these are cardiac muscles. They are present in heart. So next is here nervous tissue. So this is the last topic of this animal tissue. So these nervous tissue are made up of cells that we call nerve cells, or we call them neuron also. Right? So if we see the single cell of this tissue, that is neuron. So these neurons, its structure is like this. They have this cell body, right? And this cell body is a nucleus, and they have these extension. These are called dendrites, right? And here is the cytoplasm. So this part is called cell body. Now this is called axon. So means this dendrite one elongates and forms the axon. Clear? And at the end, they have this nerves ending, we call them. Right? So this axon, see, this is covering on this. So in some this covering is there in some type of cell, in some types of cell it is absent. So we'll do more detail in your higher classes, but as for your standard, this is the structure of a neuron or a nerve cells. So number of these neurons, they combine to form nervous tissue, right? So or nerve fiber we can say. So these nerve cells or these neurons, they are highly specialized. for being stimulated. And they transmit the stimulus very rapidly from one place to another within the body. So stimulus means when you touch is a stimulus, heat, cold. So these are stimulus. So if you see whenever somebody touches you, you can feel that because of these nerves only, right? So every cell of the body is able to receive the stimulus, but these are neurons are highly specialized. So even a smallest stimulus they can recognize. So they are highly specialized for being stimulated, and they transmit this stimulus to another part of the body. See? So now if we see this brain, spinal cord and nerves, they are composed of these nerves tissue. So their nerves tissues are present in brain, the spinal cord, and there are other nerves also. So where these nerves tissues are present, and how the body moves. So these nerves and muscles, their combination enables animal to move in response to stimuli. So whenever a stimulus is given to an animal, stimulus means whenever you touch any animal or you give heat or a cold. So what happens? These nerve cells, they receive this stimulus, and they pass this stimulus to muscles, and the muscle move. See, if somebody touches, if you feel heat in your hand, so what you do? You remove your hand. So how it happens? So this heat is a stimulus which is received by a nerve cells, and these nerve cells, they transmit this to muscles, right? And these muscle receive the stimulus and they move. So this way it functions. The movement of the animal happens. This way animals, they move, right? So this is all about animal tissues. So more